there, welcome back for practice set 8. Pause your video and get yourself a calculator, timer, pencil, and paper. And when you're ready, you can get started. Remember, do not allow more than a minute per question. I'll see you soon. Did you get C for this one? There are a couple of ways of doing this. First, recall that sine 2a is equal to 2 sine a cosine a. So if sine 2a is a half, then 2 sine a cosine a is also a half. And inverse of that would be 2. If you couldn't remember this rule, you could also figure out the angle A. Sine 2a is a half, so 2a is inverse sine of a half. And from your unit circle, you can figure out 2a is equal to 30 degrees, so the angle A is 15 degrees. You can plug 15 degrees into this given equation here, 2 sine 15 cos 15 in your calculator, and you'll get 2. Here's the next question. Take your time, set your timer, and then go ahead and do this as quickly as you can, and then run the video for answers. The question is, what values of x would make 1 over square root of x plus 1 undefined? Well, you cannot have a negative square root, so x plus 1 must not be negative. It'll be undefined. So x will be undefined for numbers less than negative 1. But at the same time, you cannot have the denominator as 0. So x plus 1 cannot be 0. So x cannot be negative 1. So all of the real numbers less than or equal to negative 1 is undefined. So the correct answer here is E. Okay, here's the next question. Okay, this question is more about thinking it through conceptually. So let's go ahead and read the question. The lines with the equations y equals m1x plus 4 and m2x plus 3 will intersect to the right of the y-axis if and only if. So the first way, you could think it conceptually and try and sketch it out. You do know that the line 1 is going to intersect the y-axis at 4 and line 2 will intersect at 3. So just sketch out a really shallow line testing for B here. You know A is not going to work because if the two slopes are equal, then the lines are parallel. So we're going to eliminate A right away. I'm testing for B here, and then sketching it out, I can see that the lines will intersect on the positive side on the right of the y-axis. If you look at C, where M1 is greater than M2, try and draw a steep slope going through 4. Sketch out a shallow slope going through 3, or approximately 3 for L2. You notice that they're intersecting on the left of the y-axis. So you might want to guess that it's B. You can also figure this out algebraically. You know that where they intersect, the two lines, you can set the two equations equal to each other and try and solve for x as best as you can. There's too many variables here, I know, but if you figure out m2x minus m1x and then factor the x out, you'll end up with the difference between the slope is equal to 1 over x. You know that that x value, whatever it is going to have to be positive. And to make that x value positive, you will have to have the slope m2 greater than m1. So you can figure this out or reason out algebraically or graphically, but either way, you do have to think this one through conceptually. Let's move on to the next question. Pause your video and try this. I hope you got A for this one, 1/6. The probabilities are independent. If the probability that it will rain sometime on Monday is 1/3, and the independent probability that it will rain sometime on Tuesday is a half, you simply multiply the two probabilities. 1/3 times a half is 1/6. All right. This is question number 5. So pause your video and try this, and then we'll go over it. I hope you got this right away. The answer is B. They're asking for the maximum value. You don't really need a calculator. You know f of x is equal to 1 minus x squared. It's a parabola, down facing, pushed up 1 unit. So the maximum value f of x has to be 1. That was very easy. It should have taken you way less than 1 minute. Moving on. Okay, here's question number 6. Pause your video and see if you can do this in record time. This question is 13. If f of x is 1 minus x, inverse of f of x is the inverse. So let's go ahead and figure out the equation for the inverse. If y is equal to 1 minus 4x, the way we figure out the inverse is you trade x and y and solve for y. So the inverse equation turns out to be x minus 1 over negative 4. F of negative 3, you plug in negative 3 right over here and you get 13. Inverse of the function of negative 3, you plug negative 3 in the inverse function, which is negative 3 minus 1 divided by negative 4, which is positive 1. So 13 times positive 1 gives you 13. You just figure out separately and multiply them together. Here's question number 7. Again, pause your video and try this. The answer for this question is E. Okay, you know that when you divide a dividend with a divisor, the answer is a quotient plus the remainder. So the question is asking which of the following polynomials, when divided, so you don't know what the polynomial is, and when it's divided by 3x plus 4, the quotient is 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 with a remainder 3. So if you divide the polynomial by this number, you get the quotient, and if you multiply these two, you'll get the polynomial back. So multiplying 3x plus 4 times 2x squared plus 5x minus 3 and adding that remainder at the end gives you the polynomial 6x cubed plus 23x squared plus 11x minus 9. Time to move on to the next question. Okay, here it is. Pause your video and try it. All right, the correct answer for this one is D. So let's go ahead and look at the problem. Let this symbol be defined as the floor of x, where x, the floor of x, is the greatest integer that is less than or equal to x. So let's say your x was here. Then this number 1 would be the floor. And let this symbol be the ceiling of x, where x is the greatest integer that is greater than or equal to x. So if your x is here, then that number, it would be the ceiling. So if you look at this, you know that the ceiling is the floor plus 1. So ceiling is the floor number plus 1. If f of x is equal to the ceiling plus the floor, and x is not an integer, so x is anywhere between two integers, then f of x is also equal to what? So if you know that the ceiling is floor plus 1, you can substitute this for here. So floor plus 1 plus the floor, which is twice the floor number, plus 1. And that's the correct answer. It was a tough one. Moving on to question number 9, and here it is. Pause your video now and try this. Correct answer is C. Recall your logarithmic rules here. So the question was, well, first of all, you need to collapse this one here. To collapse this, all you need to do is go log base 2, and add means multiply, so x times x. So that's where you get x squared from. And that is set equal to 7. Then convert the logarithm to the exponential form by taking this 2 across the equal sign. 2 becomes the base, 7 becomes the exponent. So you now have x squared is equal to 2 to the power 7. And you can calculate the x value on your calculator. Moving on to the last question. This is question number 10. So pause your video and try this. Okay, another domain question. If f of x is square root of x minus 1 over x, what is the domain? So you know you cannot have a negative square root. So x minus 1 has to be positive. In other words, x has to be greater than or equal to 1. But you can't have 0, the bottom here, as a denominator. X cannot be equal to 0. So your domain, accepted domain, would be greater than or equal to 1. So all real numbers greater than or equal to 1 is your correct answer. Okay, this is the end of this video session. Congratulations on completing the practice set 8 of 10 questions. I hope to see you again. Goodbye.